Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, welcome again to Cambodia Global Dialogue of Southeast Asia TV. As you all know, the theme of our series this year is focused mostly on entrepreneurship, business, but in the context of Cambodia in the ASEAN Economic Community. And I think it's important for us to appreciate the business trend, the investment trend that affecting not only the region, ASEAN as an economic community, but as well our own country, Cambodia. This evening, I have a pleasure to have a good friend, Samatpo, or Sam, shortly, who's quite knowledgeable in the area of business consulting, FDI, foreign direct investment. And we're going to try to cover, what we perceive is the trend, in terms of business trend, in terms of investment trend in the region and also affecting our country. But a lot also on assuming they come, what do we have to do, what they are looking for, how do we, entrepreneur, Cambodian businessmen, how do we prepare ourselves to work with them, to partner with them, to do business with them. So on that note, Sam, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yes.
Thanks.
Well, this is your first time.
This is my first time, sir.
Yeah. So I thought I'm going to give you a few minutes to introduce yourself a bit and a bit about the company you're with, and we'll go from there.
Okay. My name. I've been here for 8 years now. I was born here, and then I've been back to Canada. Grew up there, educated.
What year you went to Canada?
1980, and then I'm back here in 2008, and set up the seafood manufacturing, and then kind of transfer the ownership to our partners. And then I set up my consulting firms called Radius Management Consulting Firm, and we work with a lot of clients internationally and locally. To provide them investment advisory, local navigation services, other consulting services.
So your background is more business management, business consulting.
More business management. I've been in the high tech for 20 years.
Okay.
Telecommunication for 20 years, and then I jumped into the food business.
Yes.
And then back to the consulting business, focused mainly on.
So a full cycle.
Yeah, it's a full cycle because it's very interesting. Because you move from high tech to food, back to consulting, back to special economic zone. So you learn a lot about businesses in in a different industry, not just one focus.
So basically, how I see is that your experience could help a lot of young entrepreneur, which now they sort of move up already after several years. They move up to a sort of a corporate setting, but still small. I like to say that. And ultimately, what you see the economy in Cambodia is that we are very open economy. Investment from abroad come to Cambodia for one thing. We are a very liberalized economy. So they're looking for partner. Of course, some will start greenfield, but many of them would look for a local JV partner. Right? And anything you have in terms of thought on that in your dealing with you mentioned industrial zone, right? I mean, we'll talk later about the special economic zone, that sort of thing. But what do you see the trend?
There's the Cambodian is an emerging market, and a lot of potential investors out there. They're looking for local partners. And at the same time, I've seen a lot of young entrepreneurs, right? It's amazing to see young people want to invest or want to create businesses, which is, I done it myself when I was younger. And I learned a lot when you're younger. You want to do, business and pursue your dream, turning your fantasy into the dream, and then turning your dream into a concept and into reality, which is it's a natural process for a lot of people. And I think the trend is that I've seen that international FDI looking for partner, local, what we call local expertise, right? To help them with all the local navigation. The best way to work with international investor, is to prepare yourself, especially the internal structure. It's very important. Because if you have a strong, solid internal structure, good corporate structure, policy, human resource policy, for example, financial, especially financial, right? If you have a good bookkeeping, and
Tax
records, you show confidence to the investor.
Yes.
It's very important that, especially you have even a board of directors, management team, your human resource department. This is a very key component. I mean, financial is very, very, very important to a potential investor because that's what they look at it. And if you're structured right, you have a good internal policy, and it's more you boost the confidence to the investor. Which is, I think, it's very important for young people to prepare themselves.
The good thing, if I can interject there, the good thing is that we have now a wave of young entrepreneurs who are fortunate enough to have a scholarship to study abroad, or sometimes their parents sold their land, have a good price, and then they send their kid to study abroad in Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, or Malaysia for that matter, and 6-7 years later they come back. So at least they equip in terms of education-wise, right? And what I see is that when they come back, nonetheless, they've been exposed to a proper way of doing business abroad. So what you say very much resonates with them. And I find that what we lawyers would call compliance is very important, Are you in compliance with your tax law? Are you in compliance with your labor law? Are you in compliance with the, I would say, there's so many issues that company would want to make sure that it has everything proper, particularly when you want to someday partner with a foreign company.
Well, yeah, if you educated abroad, you learn a lot about the compliances, right? The standardization, the accounting principles, and all that. Even it's very important. And as a business, you try to be compliant as much as you can because you have to improve on a step. You cannot do it overnight, right?
Yes, I agree.
It's a step-by-step process to improve your internal process. So if you have the knowledge, the basic knowledge, when you go to school after 4 years, you have the foundation, right? And when you come to work, and then you realize, it's work and school is different. Theory and practical is different. So you try to integrate it between the practical approach with the theoretical approach, right? And then implement the process on a step-by-step process. It's not going to happen overnight because this is internal business improvement called business improvement process. It's take years, right, to improve it. So the best way is to work with experienced professional people to help you out with improving the business because sometimes it's nice to have a third eye to help out with the internal process. As a management, sometimes you don't say what the third party can tell you. So sometimes it's nice to invite external consultant or expert.
Yes, speaking of external consulting, speaking of professional service, I do perceive a good trend in recent years. Before, professional services, whether you're a lawyer, you're a financial analyst, or even accounting side, most of the Cambodian businessmen do not perceive that there is a need, or do they respect for that matter. They think, oh, well, I'm a successful businessman. Why do I need you? See, but in recent years, I perceive a shift, particularly among the young, well-educated businessmen. They see, wait a minute, like you said, my company is doing good, but wait a minute, this person specializes in reading financial report. I see the profit, the loss, the expense, right? But I don't see the whole picture. Why so? So now they start to appreciate professional services like financial aspect. In law, the same thing. People say, well, look, I want to lease my villa for you to open a coffee shop. Why do I need a lawyer? 3,000 a month, that's it. Then they hear a story, oh my God, the roof leak. When they do the renovation, who paid for it? All this sort of thing. Now they start to say, okay, I might as well ask for a professional advice. So this is a good trend in the right direction.
Yeah. I think this is very important for companies, especially the young entrepreneur or existing business to consult with external expert. The benefit is that external consultant, they see a bigger picture because they're dealing with many clients. They're dealing with many issues in a wide spectrums of industry, not just one industry, right? So if business acquire the knowledge of external consultant can tell you, from a different perspective. Because consultant will tell you exactly what, the practical approach. Because management sometimes they're very emotional. They don't accept the facts.
They take things
personally. Yeah. But consultant, they tell you the facts, right? The facts. So, and consultant has more experience. Even I can see that, especially in the legal sector, there's need
very specialized also.
But the legal firm can tell you, they have different experience, different clients, and this is your contract. If you have other clients that have similar experience, so I think it's important. Once in a while to do reality checks with external expert or consultant. I think it's a healthy thing.
I think industry knowledge is very important. Because sometimes most entrepreneurs start very spontaneously. They happen to inherit from their parent. They went to school as an engineer. They come back. Their parents say, "Look, I built a good store chain already. You take over." And then the kids say, well, but I study engineering. Doesn't matter, you help the family. So certainly that person end up doing something that has nothing, no background. Of course, they know about the basic, right? But to understand what I call industry knowledge is very important. Because each industry has its own specificity, in terms of financial projection, in terms of forecasting, in terms of management, human resource, all that. I think is very important.
Yes, it is because when we do the business analysis, we do according to the industry benchmark.
Yes.
The industry, we don't, we have to compare apple to apple, not apple to oranges. It's very important that the whoever take over the business. Sometimes in the problem is how to rate a good CEO and you don't rate a CEO when there's during the booming economy, right? You rate them when it's dooming.
Yes.
If the CEO can maintain the business during the downtime, so a good CEO will stand out, will survive, right? And for young people, when they do business, they do the business doing well, right? They didn't realize that sometimes the market give them the opportunity, not because of them, right? So you have to be careful. So you don't have to become so complacent that sometimes it's the market is give you the opportunity. That's why your business is doing well.
Yeah.
So you can't ignore a lot of factors. You tend to ignore what's ahead of you, right? It's happened everywhere. When during the high tech booms, you see people make millions of dollars,
and then you see a lot of people going bust.
Exactly. So only a few CEO that stand out from that, right? So the best way to rate the CEO, good business people or CEO, is when the downtime.
Good. Well, Sam, I think it's time to take a short break. Okay. When we come back, I want to cover a bit more on the foreign direct investment in the region and where do you see they're coming to the country. Okay, short break. Sam, in the ASEAN Economic Community, we are in fact competing against each other. You know, we say we are a community, but every country is trying to attract FDI to their country, not to send to their neighbor. So it's clear. So to me, what I see Cambodia now, we are part of this regional production chain or global value chain or regional value chain or supply chain, whatever you call, right? But it's along that spectrum where we would be able to produce some component, some part, and then move to assemble some other place, but still in the ASEAN context, right? So I see in a region now, Thailand is still going to be the major country that will assemble car, okay? You know, Vietnam, for example, 50% of Samsung mobile phone are produced in Vietnam, right? Let's be clear about that. In our country, we start to see Japanese company start to make some components, some part, right? You know, ASEAN country like a small economy like Singapore, small in terms of size, not in terms of GDP, because Singapore is quite an advanced and I would say very rich country, if I can say. But opportunity for their own citizens also limited because the size of their geographical size, right? And so is Malaysia. That's why you see a lot of Malaysian and Singaporean, you know, businessmen coming to look for opportunity in Cambodia to do merger acquisition, to buy share, to enter into JV here. You work a lot in terms of developing industrial zone, right? What sort of trend you see? What sort of company you see?
I've been seeing Japanese actually moving in slowly, especially in the manufacturing side. You have to understand, you have to understand how the way the manufacturing is shifting. You have to look at it from a product life cycle perspective, because the manufacturing tend to move their production to another country when it hits certain level of life cycle, because from the new product introduction, what we call the NPI, to the maturity, market saturation, and then the obsolescence, right? So certain, and you can see some company are moving to Cambodia, when their products for generally for basic manufacturing assembly, right? High volume, low quality product,
labor
intensive, right? This is you can see that they started moving in slowly, Japanese, and I've been working with a few big Japanese companies that they setting up manufacturing in the special economic zone in Phoi Phet. They start slowly with the smaller production line, right? And then they gradually will increase it. So Cambodia will still have a lot of opportunity. There's so many young labor forces. It's good for manufacturing to move in some of their production line with its team probably to hit the maturity, right? That's because when product hit maturity, it's more stable. So they can outsource to any country, right?
Yes.
The new product is it's not that stable, so they tend to stay with in close proximity to the R&D.
Yes.
So you can see all these products, high volume products, moving into countries such as Cambodia. Because it's very easy to assemble. It's not very complicated.
Yes. And speaking of that, I can see now like a gradual sort of like inflow of still not full assembly yet, but a lot of components, right? Not just in automobile, but also in motorcycle, for example. India, the Baija, the bike, right? The big motorcycle, and then the tricycle, right? See, these are all to me what I call the early learning stage for our mechanics, for our skilled labor. Once they get used to it, it's easy to migrate up to assemble something a bit more sophisticated, right? Yazaki from Japan, for example, is a Denso, So you see the big brand name, right? Mitsui, all these Japanese company, they still, to me, I think it has a lot to do with the geopolitical development also. The Thailand plus one, that the concept is all the time. And you see Thailand now have their own strategy to have industrial zone bordering Cambodia, Laos, or Myanmar, something along that line.
Yeah, it's basically, I work in the I've been, I was working at the manufacturing for 20 years, right? In the manufacturing outsourcing, we're outsourcing a lot of production lines to China and to Mexico. So it's not that hard to assemble all this. I mean, the good news is labor force are trainable. And especially the Japanese economy, they have a good training policy. So they can train people. It's not a rocket science. It's a basic assembly line where you can assemble. Even iPhone, I think we can do it. Our people can do it. Labor force can do it. It's not. Some people say, well, it's very high tech. No, it's not that hard to assemble certain product, even computer, right? Because they have a certain process, a certain technique that you can do. You can just train people to assemble a computer within a couple of weeks, right?
Yeah, I want to jump in on this one because this is what a lot of people felt that, Cambodian lack the high skill, right? To me, when I speak to some Japanese industrialists, they say exactly what you say, that look, we can train them once they have the basic understanding of industrial life, right? Because to me, no matter how much I felt that we shouldn't be a low-cost producing garment footwear country, well, you got to start somewhere, right?
Exactly.
20 years ago, we had nothing. You do whatever you have to do. But 20 years later, we must move up the value chain. And, garment is not a value unless you make fancy, suit like that or something. But people who work in the garment industry for so many years, what they had is industrial mindset. I wake up a certain time, I have a break at a certain time, lunch break certain time. So it's a discipline. If I like to call it, it's a discipline. What the Japanese love is that they love to poach people who work in the garment industry because for them they can train them to assemble their camera or their smartphone, but they don't want to have people straight from the farm who wake up at the sound of a rooster and then go take a nap in the afternoon. See?
Yeah, I mean you don't, in the manufacturing, labor force, like I said, it's trainable, and when I was a manager there, we hire a lot of people that they don't have any experience, and put them on the production line, and they start assemble stuff, right? It's because as long as you have a good process, right? Training process, and but having said that, I think the discipline of the labor forces, right, need to be strengthened. Discipline, especially because in assembly line, it's a different working environment than you work on a farm. Because on a farm you can stop, you can go relax. There's no interruption. In the production line, there's a lot of interruption. If you move, if you don't perform your duty, your assigned task, it's going to interrupt along the production lines, right? So it has to be disciplined. Even you go to washroom, break times, you cannot just in a synchronized production line. You have to, the vessel will say, okay, break time. So everybody drop and to go to lunchtime or break time, right? Production.
So they must have big toilet then.
Yeah, it's a factory.
I'm just teasing,
they have the washroom is pretty big, right? And the important is to minimize the interruption during the working hour, because I'm talking about the production lines, right? To maximize the output, and the quality. So, of course, the discipline for labor forces, because it's a routine work. It's a different repetitive. So maybe some of the labor, they don't want to be in that environment. They like to work on a farm. They like to do things. They want to wake up at 10 o'clock and then work for a couple of months and do something else. But in the production line, you have to be very disciplined, right? Otherwise, you're going to interrupt the production. So there's going to be a backlog along the lines, right? So if you slow, and the other people that work faster than you, and then it's going to be another backlog. So what we call the production flow, we conduct a time study, because in the production line have different workstations, right? So each workstation have certain number of people, workers in there, and they have to be disciplined and synchronized in order to achieve the maximum output.
Sam, I mean, we talk about skill, we talk about work, but at the end of the day, people have to buy food, right? I mean, and that's what I'm trying to get into, which is how do you see our wage structure here relative to, the region in terms of our competitiveness, for example? And productivity. You have to be linked to productivity.
Yeah, the minimum wages are very competitive, right? Very competitive, and to other regions. Personally, when I set up manufacturing, wages is a very important factor, but it's not the only factor. That if you have to make a decision to move your manufacturing, right? In the manufacturing, you're talking about efficiency, speed and times and quality. When we make decision, if sometimes you can pay someone $200 or $300, but if it's efficient, if the output it's high, right? So you can leverage your costs, right? So it's good that we have the wages are low, but I mean the sometimes if you can produce more, right, you can work more.
So the correlation between higher wage and productivity has to be.
It has to be correlated between the two, right? You cannot give high wage and low productivity, right? Yeah. I rather give higher wage, high productivity.
Yes. Because that's the only way you push the paradigm.
Exactly.
Because if not, we go for the race to the bottom, know. You lower the price, I lower the price, you lower the price, and at the end nobody make money.
Exactly.
So to me, I like to have this metaphor that it's better, to pay more, and then but at the same time you have to accompany with a capacity building program, a training program, a productivity upgrading, so that people feel that, look, I'm getting paid more than the other guy, but wait a minute, it's not by favor, because I deliver better, right?
Yeah.
And that should give it the incentive for others, right? But don't you think for this sort of productivity program, does the state have the role, or it's purely within the industry itself?
The industry, they have certain rule and guideline. I mean, they expert in certain industry, right? It's nice to have some sort of a guideline from the state, but overall, they're mostly internal. Productivity, it's internal issue, right? When it comes to productivities, you don't just focus on the labor forces, right? Okay. Because there's so many factors that why your production is low, right? It could be the equipment and the machinery. It could be the production layout, the floor layout, right? It could be the policy. Could be the training. Could be so many interrupted factors, right? If your machine broke down, if you don't upgrade your machine, if you don't calibrate it, so it slowed down. So when it comes to productivity, we cannot just blame on labor.
Okay.
It's that's why we have to look at everything to see if it is when it's a problem.
Yes.
There's people, equipment, right, and
Okay.
building
process,
right. So we have to look at all that, right?
Well, Sam, another short break, and then we will restart we'll continue more on that productivity,
Okay.
which is I find very exciting because it's a lot of sort of like fallacy of just pointing the finger. Oh, well, our worker is slow, our worker is not that good. Okay?
Yeah.
Short break.
Okay, thanks.
Sam, let's continue on the issue of productivity. As you said before, productivity should not be just blame on a poor worker, right? Because I'm so tired of hearing that our worker is not competent, they're slow, whatever. But I'm glad you dispelled that myth. That it's not only the worker.
No.
And you think about it, work performance rely a lot on the overall environment, the structure, the management philosophy, how management treat the staff, labor policy, human resource, that sort of thing.
Well, the policy, there should be some sort of a incentive, right, for workers to be more productive, and the environment, especially the working environments, and it's very important for they have a nice and clean environment to work. You have to create a healthy environment because that's contributed to high productivity. So the company needs to ensure that the happy worker, happy productivity, right?
Yeah.
It's a reality.
Yes.
It's very important that the company need to establish a healthy and productive policy, but at the same time, you have to look at the human element and non-human element when you come to your productivity. So you have to identify and take corrective action which elements is deficient.
Yes. Well, I would say the non-human element is very important.
It is.
And this is lead to something that is very recent, right? The World Economic Forum this year and last year they start pushing this idea that the world now have reached a stage of what they call the fourth industrial revolution, right? So it's beyond automation. We're talking about robotic. We're talking about 3D laser printing. We talk about all this sort of like high-end, digitization, right? And to me, I think we have to be careful also because it's a sort of two-edged. We also need employment. But when you shift everything to automation, there's a balancing act. I mean, how much do you want to automate the whole factory, and then at the same time, care about employment?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are certain automation should be in place, right?
Yes.
But overall, I think human, like especially in the food industry, in the third manufacturing industry, you cannot be automate the whole production line, because you still need some human elements in there, certain
the visual essential touch,
everything, because I mean, business want to cut costs by implement this automation, but in reality, it's very difficult to put everything in an automation mode because you still need people to work because people can feel, can touch, can smell, right? And automation is good for certain high-tech production, but general manufacturing assembly, I think you still need people because human can do better sometimes, like they can see better, they can react quicker. But it's a certain production line. Of course, you need some sort of automation, but especially for it depends on the product life cycle, again, right? Okay. Because if you want to push the 3D printer or renewable energy, but for the general consumer products,
which are mostly consumer products. Let's face it, that we consume every day.
Exactly. So we still need people. We still need laborers to do the daily productions activities. You cannot get away from that. I don't know.
Speaking of human, right? If you would have money and you're gonna go into vocational training to build skill, right? Skill that will be much needed in the market. A skill that when you graduate from the school, employer would just snatch you. What would be the area of technical skill you would want to invest into?
Right now, I think for us, Cambodia, I think I would invest into supply chain management training skill, right? Because supply chain, it drives the manufacturing industry. It's very, very critical, which is, I think...
Give me some examples.
Supply material management, inventory control management, warehouse management, production planning. Those are very good courses for people to work in the manufacturing, because we need people to do, the material management, because supply chain management, right? We need that. We need that in order to help pushing the manufacturing industry. The ERP system, where they call it enterprise resource planning, because you do everything, plan all your inventory materials in the system called the ERP system. And we need that. Universities should start to offer supply chain management courses, because a lot of developed nations, they offer degrees in supply chain management, right? Because they realized in the past 30 years, they said, supply chain is very important in anything, in the retail, in the manufacturing. You have to learn how to control the inventory, planning, because if there interruption during the supply chain, will stop the operation.
Yes.
Right.
So efficiency has a lot to do with that.
Efficiency has to do with supply chain, and high productivity has to do with supply chain. If you don't have a supply chain knowledge, it will impact your productivity. Definitely. It's because especially for us, where we relies on a lot of import raw material, like components, right?
Agreed.
So we have to plan. We have to plan certain production lines, in order to produce, right? So if you bring in a lot of raw components in, and then we don't know how to manage it.
Right? And something as a very visual in Phnom Penh now is you see all this fast food, right? And fast food require a very steady logistical supply chain, particularly cold storage.
Yeah, exactly.
Particularly cold storage, and this is something I don't see a lot of a cold storage truck. And it does affect the I would say the ability to deliver quality product to the final consumer.
Yeah, it is. Because cold storage, because fast food, it relies on packaged, frozen food, right? And it's like a food assembly line. If you go to some of the burger shop, or it's basic supply chain. I don't see a lot of public cold storage, cold storages in Cambodia. Maybe this is an opportunity, because we rely more on fast food, and then because the fast food mostly is frozen and pushed through the chains, right? And I think it's very important that we have to build a strong supply chain, and people got to learn about supply chain. Some company that implement the best ERP system, right? But we don't know how to use it. We don't know the concept of inventory management. Because the inventory management is it's a science. It's not an art.
One last thing. I think I suspect we're getting close to the end of our show, but I want to see this happen, and this is part of our industrial development policy. We're talking about supply chain management, we're talking about production, global value chain, but where are we? How do we get Cambodian businessmen, Cambodian younger industrialists, Cambodian younger scientists, Cambodian younger, I would say, businessmen, how do we get them to be part of the supply chain? What sort of investment, what sort of mindset, what sort of experience or work, or how do we do to get the Cambodian to be part of the forward linkage or backward linkage, whatever you call that, right? Along the production.
Yeah, it's everything we do here, everything we do, we're already part of the supply chain.
Okay.
Right. So indirectly or directly, but we're part of the supply chain. Even a coffee shop, we're part of the supply chain. The supply chain. Even you open a little restaurant, it's part of the supply chain. You be part of the supply chain, but it is whether it's smaller scale or larger scale, but you're already part of the supply chain. Because if, for example, you open a coffee shop, you need to bring coffees in, right? And who's farmed the coffee, where the coffee's coming from. So you have to understand the global coffee production, the supply, right? So if it's going to be drought, is that how it's going to impact the supply chain, the price, and long run. So, every day what we do, we're part of the domestic and international supply chains already, right? But I would. We need to understand it, the importance of supply chain, right? Because supply chain, it's not you cannot just focus on that. Supply chain it start from raw material extracted point to the finished product. So how it's going to transport your raw material, semi finished good into your shop, a little shop. Because every day we're part of the supply chain. It doesn't matter what business you're in. And basically, you're in the part of the global supply chain or domestic.
Whether we know it or not.
Whether we know it or not, because we know. Even we use the phone, the iPhone, for example. We're part of because when it's broken, we already know the part's going to produce, right? If the component's going to go up, how's it going to impact?
So this could be an opening for some businessmen, Cambodian entrepreneurs, to say, wait a minute, if the more I understand about supply chain, the more I can see the gap, the more I see opportunity where I can fit in, right?
Exactly. If you understand supply chain, it helps you plan better. It helps you what business you want to be in, because it's sometimes you open a manufacturing, right, and you didn't understand the end supply chain and how it's going to impact your finished products. So to understand the supply chain, where the source of material you're going to bring in, is a for example, in a small restaurant, even they sell seafood. Where you supply chain from the ocean farm, or if there's a problem with the
I can mention a very small, simple, during this trip to the province during holiday, we drove and we stopped by in a nice coffee shop, right, which is a franchise coffee shop, and I want some coffee. I want some iced coffee because it's hot. And my son won some smoothie, something. We walk in, the queue was enormous. By the time we get there, the girl that sell that, they say, "Boo, uncle, we don't have iced coffee anymore." I said, "How come?" "We run out of ice." And then my son said, "Well, can I have a smoothie?" "Well, we can because we run out of yogurt." Right. And these are like only at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a nice Saturday. So here is a total breakdown of supply chain.
It is.
And people walk out unhappy, mad, because they have to queue up for half an hour to find out there's not.
Exactly. Because, we should not wait for 1 hour because to get notice that things ran out, right? Because you should have punched in the computer, the ERP system, and said we ran out. So this is, of course, you're absolutely right. It's a supply chain broke down, lack of inventory management, lacks of planning, right? Because it's an inventory control management issue. Inventory control management is part of the supply chain. It's one of the function of supply chains, right? And that's why I said, I have a lot of experiences where even I went to exchange my computer. I was sitting for almost 1 hour to get a replacement. This is, I say, because they had to look in the warehouse, they couldn't find the replacement. I think this is a problem.
Worse, you drop your computer when you desperately need to be fixed, you were told to leave it there, and a week later they call you to say, have you downloaded data because we may have to reboot the system.
Reformat.
That's it.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Now that's you're right.
Yeah.
It's this breakdown of
Yeah.
or not understanding
Yeah.
this supply chain approach.
Yeah, that's why a young entrepreneur need to understand the supply chain, because it a cost that sometimes you cannot quantify, right? Shortages of inventories, like you cannot get iced coffee. What is the loss of opportunity,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So it's very, very important to talk about the supply
Good.
chain.
Well, Sam, I think we're coming to the end of the program, and I must say that we have shared quite a lot of insight for the Cambodian businessmen, for the young entrepreneur, how to better prepare themselves to be part of this supply chain, regional supply chain. On one side, which is the larger picture, but more on the micro side, how to, at least at their level, survive, prosper in their own industry, from the mere fact that you understand supply chain, you understand inventory control, you understand basic, operating procedure, right? Because that's the first step, and then after that you move up, right? And ultimately, we hope that the sum of all these efficient, productive entrepreneur worker will help Cambodia to become a more competitive nation vis-a-vis a neighbor, which we still have some way to go, but we got to start somewhere. So on that note, Sam, I want to say thank you.
Thank you.
And I hope to have you again. But next time I want to have you with a panel of business people who would benefit from this dialogue. Okay? Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Good.